Hi, my name is Chloe. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I generally do social commentary style videos, particularly from a black feminist perspective. I live in the UK, I'm from London. Sometimes I might do a little bit of a film review, TV review, but if any of that stuff sounds like your cup of tea, please hit the subscribe button and don't forget to let me know what you think of today's video below. So I think the way that I really think about this issue is that what we associate with countries are a bunch of different ideas and concepts which represent that they are social constructs, meaning these ideas, themes and concepts, but also the border itself, how geography has been carved out, how we associate, a particular piece of land with particular groups of people, right? And when we don't, right? And who is seen as those that should be pushed out, who is seen as having a legitimate right to that piece of land, or even this links to who has a right to travel, who has a right to freedom of movement and who does not. And I do think that these things adjust and change over time. And if you think about soft power in America, there's so much TV, films, even the music industry, you can see this sort of rags to riches image, this idea that is the land of the free, the land of opportunity. But we know that the idea of the American dream is a fallacy. It's something that does not exist for everyone who gets access to the American dream. But nevertheless, it's sold to people that live in America and those that do not. And this is in part what we can see as an attempt to wash away America's past and present in how it was established through violence, through imperialistic violence, these ideas of manifest destiny. So if you don't know what manifest destiny is, it's that it's one's God-given right. So from that perspective of the Protestant Europeans to have access to that land, and that is the foundation of America. It ultimately shapes the way that America operates today. So this brings me to the next section of the video, and it's the policing of borders, and I'm really focusing on America here and the historical irony of that. So when I was thinking of this topic, one thing that really came to my mind was Trump's campaign the first time around, and how Mexico and Mexicans were used as a tool to highlight to his audience, and we know who they are, that he was going to be hard on crime and immigration, and Mexicans and Mexico was seen as a key part of that, what he was getting rid of, what is ruining Americanness, the idea of what America is losing. And it's in the imagery that these white supremacists use, it's the idea that the white race is no longer going to exist, that their community, they're no longer going to exist and they're being replaced. So I think it's called the Great Replacement Theory or something along those lines. That then brings me to how he used the build a wall. That was such a key part of his movement, and he claimed he was going to build a wall to prevent illegal immigrants from arriving in America. And I really hate the term illegal immigrant. So you steal the land and then create a system of when you are able to define who has a right to a place and who does not. Yeah, that's basically what it is in summary, right? You have the dominant culture who is claiming ownership of a land, and that is then reflected in the foreign policy, who are seen as the invaders who are crossing over, and when they're really just people that want to have access to opportunities, that have family and just want to want to live and not have to deal with the difficulties that they are facing back home. But instead they're framed as criminals, as people who are stealing people's jobs, and all of this language we saw within Trump's campaign. And I'm sure depending on where you are, you can relate that this is the sort of messaging that you're seeing in your government. And the horrific images that we have seen of ICE separating people from their families, ripping people off the street at their places of work, schools. So they're putting people in ICE detention centers, and they don't have contact with their family, and people are being deported, and it really highlights how fragile these ideas of who belongs and who doesn't is. And it does make me think of the Windrush scandal, for example. Who is constantly going to be seen as someone that doesn't belong? Belonging, I feel, is such a huge part of this. Who is seen as those that should be feared, as a threat, as a criminal? What is considered a citizen and is not can easily change, right? And is changing. And Trump also wants to change, I think it's some of the process in terms of birthright citizenship, which is basically if your parents come to this country and they have children, the children might not necessarily have access to citizenship. I think it's something along those lines. But there is all of these anti-immigration movements, particularly from a UK perspective, across Europe. We have the recent reports of in Ireland. We have Reform and Nigel Farage and all of those people within that space. We have what's going on in France, and I think there definitely is something in the air, and so much so that even people that are not of the dominant culture, that are non-white, are pushing these xenophobic ideas of who should be here and who should not. I saw Justin Day recently did a video about a creator who was saying that Africans are taking over Essence. So if you don't know what Essence is, it's a magazine. I think it's a black beauty magazine, fashion, that sort of thing. And they're essentially saying that it's not African American anymore, that Africans, and you can see in the term, the way that it's laid out, those from outside are coming in and taking over. Do you see? It's the same kind of thing. It's sad. It's really, really sad that even people within our communities who know what it means to be alienated and attacked and bullied and harassed are playing into this themselves because of the privilege that they have. So if you're part of the Global North, it's very important to be mindful of how you can feed into these ideas of the supremacy of Western states. So for example, America or the UK, of being better than, right? Because so for example, from a London perspective, you speak with an English accent that is seen as English London accent, right? And that is seen as legitimate, seen as intelligent, like what it is associated with. There's that linguistic element also. It just feels very vulnerable at the moment, like the position that we hold, the space that we have, the way in which people are just being removed and taken away from their families, and it's just so horrifying. And I really just feel as though I have to talk about this